Well, welcome everybody to our Simplifying Community Management in M365 panel of two. Really, it's myself and Patty from MBN Canada. So we'll do intros in a second as we get in here. Let me just start going through the decks here. So I'm going to kick off first. I'm Peter Carson, president of Envision IT, also a Microsoft M365 MVP and regular industry speaker. Yeah, I'm here in London at the Info Security Conference. We're not actually speaking there, but participating in the Ontario booth as part of a trade mission, as Kevin was mentioned, as folks were just joining in there. So excited to do that. It's actually a bit of a junket. It was in Düsseldorf last week for European Collaboration Summit, and then European Power Platform Conference coming up the week after next as well. So busy couple weeks. Lots of clients in the both the association space and what we like to call the self-governing profession or self-regulating profession space, which are closely related, and they both have members, and a lot of what we're going to talk about here applies to both of those. You see a lot of colleges from a self-regulating profession point of view, but also quite a number of associations as well, MBN Canada being part of that group. Not sure if folks on the call tuned in. This was a couple of weeks ago, I guess, a month ago, losing track of time. Did a session on Teams First Information Architecture, also a joint webinar with Bind Tuning, a partner of ours in Portugal, and talking about Teams maturity models and such. And this is sort of an evolution of that to say, hey, the previous webinar was fairly broad in terms of application. We're going to narrow that down and focus the context specifically on association management. But Patty, why don't I give you a chance to introduce yourself to the group, and then we're going to flip over and I'll get you to do a little background on MBN Canada as well.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patty Tomlin. I am the Interim Executive Director for MBN Canada. Purpose of our program is to measure services from municipalities across Ontario, and we do that using many products from Envision.
Thanks, Patty. Yeah, so why don't you give a little deeper sort of history on MBN Canada?
Sure. So as you can see on the slide, we are a not-for-profit association, began supporting Canadian municipalities in performance management. We collect about 700 measures across 36 service areas annually, and then we produce reports for municipalities, for the board, and for the general public. You can see those on our website. Just as an aside, we have pared down the 700 metrics this year to about 250 to make things a little bit more manageable for people. MBN Canada was born out of what used to be a benchmarking program run by the province of Ontario, which has been, I'm trying to think of the word, they've discontinued that project. So we had some CAOs and city managers about 20 years ago who wanted to take a deeper dive into those metrics that were required by the province, and that was how what used to be called OMBI was born, and we eventually became MBN Canada when we went national in 2016.
Cool. Thanks, Patty. And I guess, I mean, Envision IT started working with MBN Canada quite a few years ago as part of your M365 journey, just getting you going in the cloud and such from that point of view. But then it was it 3 years ago or 4 years ago that we launched the portal and really started bringing the association management to the forefront?
Yeah, it was 2021, so it was fresh out of COVID.
4 years ago, yes.
Yeah, when we
or still in the thick of it, I guess.
I think we started our journey with you in late 2019 or in 2020, and then officially launched the new portal in 2021 for the 2020 data collection.
Right, very good. So not a lot on the agenda items here. We've already done the introductions. We're going to start sort of general and talk about associations and regulated community needs in general. But we're actually going to spend the bulk of the time kind of walking through not just the secure portal that we've built for MBN Canada, but also the public website and kind of all up what associations look for from a digital point of view. So let's start though with just talking about digital transformation of associations and sort of what's brought us to where we are here in 2025. And this need to reinvent member engagement. I've actually experienced this personally because I run what used to be called the Toronto SharePoint Users Group. Years back, we've rebranded as the Toronto Microsoft 365 or M365 User Group. Got to be careful on the branding with Microsoft there. And I faced a real challenge, with the board that I've been working with on that. Just how do we get members of associations engaged again. The historical was we had physical meetups once a month, third Wednesday of every month, and getting people out into the downtown core of Toronto wasn't that big of a challenge. We had lots of people coming out. And then COVID hit, everybody went remote, we went virtual. We tried going back to in-person again from there. It's just tough to get people out from there. So we really need to engage that digital side, and members really want to see that dual engagement, that mix of in-person and virtual. In fact, I mean, Patty, you were lead on the national forum that we're going to talk about in a little bit. I mean, even there, you've gone to a hybrid model where you allow both in-person and virtual attendees to the forum. I mean, what was the split, just roughly? I know I didn't give you a chance to prep for that question, but between virtual attendees and in-person attendees for that session back in the fall.
It was fairly low for the virtual this year. I think I would say 90% in person, 10% virtual.
Right, which is nice to see, actually. I mean, for those types of events where there's a heavy networking component to it, it's tough to do that from a virtual point of view. It's always better from an in-person perspective. Okay, so let's chat about sort of the needs of associations, and this space of association management software is not a new one. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's gone through lots of different evolutions, and there's certainly lots of vendors out there. And we're going to talk about what's distinct about us and why us from that point of view. But let's start first. What are organizations looking for? And obviously, membership management is a big part of that. Directory, the ability to have people join the association and participate in it is a big part. Running events, whether they're virtual or in person, obviously marketing and email newsletters and such, handling payments, whether it's collecting fees to be a member from a registration point of view, or payment for events and such from that perspective. Content management, whether it's from a public website point of view or private secure content, sort of members only perspective, applies to both there. Reporting and analytics, which we'll get into deeper with MBN Canada. I mean, a huge part of why you exist is to provide reporting back to the members to say, hey, we've collected all this data. What does it mean? Who's doing things well? Who's not? How do we learn from each other from that perspective? Learning management, the ability to provide courses, particularly in the self-regulating professions. If you're a lawyer, an accountant, and such, there's mandatory training that you need to validate each year to maintain your membership and maintain your right to practice in that particular field. So LMS is often part of what we see as part of that. Maybe donations and fundraising, if it's a charitable association, certainly integrations to other systems. As associations get bigger and more complex, they actually run a lot of different software. So how do you pull that together? And then obviously mobile, making sure it's mobile friendly, accessible, are all important things to associations. So if we think about, why Microsoft 365? Why would you use the Microsoft Cloud for association management? It's not something that Microsoft builds natively out of the box, but the reality is a lot of associations, a lot of organizations already use Microsoft 365. And Microsoft's super clear on the next point that it's not a closed system. You own the data. I learned this the painful way with my SharePoint users group. We used to run the events through Eventbrite, very common, popular platform for doing events on. Did not realize that we don't own the data. And when we decided to switch platforms, we actually could not export our own member list of email addresses and contact details of who actually belong to the association. Eventbrite wouldn't let you get that. The best we could do was to send a mass email to everybody saying, hey, we're moving to a new system. If you want to keep in touch, come see us over there. But it really wasn't ideal from that point of view. So we had over 1,000 contacts originally. When we did that first migration, we kind of dropped to about 250, and then we've been building it back up from there. So that ability to own the data, something that everybody should think about, and associations in particular. But I mean, Microsoft's known for enterprise grade, whether it's from a security, a scalability, a cost efficiency point of view. They're very strong from that perspective. So that's sort of the pro side. On the con side, what are the challenges around that? Well, no surprise that Microsoft 365 can be overly complex. They're trying to solve the problems for any size organization, massive to tiny, across the globe. So it comes with complexity. And for members, maybe you don't use it on a regular basis, that can be overwhelming. If you belong to a board or a committee or a panel, and this isn't what you live and breathe in every day, because that's not your day job, then that can be overwhelming. So our goal as an organization in Envision IT, our aspirational is we make Microsoft simple. We know we're never going to completely achieve that goal, but in small bites and in very specific scenarios, that's always our guiding light from that perspective. So, it really helps to enhance the association side, starting with the self-service member access. The idea that we don't need IT involved, the business can manage this themselves, either through an invitation process or through a self-registration process, and bring people into the site. And that delegated administration side, we're going to see a lot with MBN Canada, that's delegated not just within the association, but actually to the member municipalities. They know best who should participate in how, so they actually manage that on behalf of their municipality. And we seamlessly integrate into M365. We're not sort of beside it. We're literally on top of it. We work natively with SharePoint and Teams. We provide a branded portal, and we provide all the security you get as part of that. So that's mainly the end of the slides. I really wanted to spend most of the time just in conversation with Patty and just kind of go through what we've done for MBN Canada, what it's mean for them, and how it affects the organization. So we're going to be sharing this deck and recording afterwards. These links are all live. They won't all work for attendees, but the first 3 or so there are public and available, so anybody can go and check it out. In fact, the registration for the forum is sort of hidden on the website, but it's still there, so I can show it to you. I'm sure Patty'd be happy to take your credit card if you want to spend money on it, but it doesn't really make sense. The forum was over last October. But let's start on the public website side. So this was something fairly new, Patty. I guess we launched this midway through last year, didn't we?
Yes.
So actually, let me start right up at the top of the site here. So this is the mbncanada.ca public website. So you can see it's branded. It's got the MBN Canada, look and feel and content through here. But really, what we've done is, as part of our external user manager product, we use a publisher feature, a content management feature here to publish this website out. So it's on a domain that's owned and managed by MBN Canada, but we actually host it on behalf of them in our Azure data center that Microsoft hosts here in Canada. So we're very clear about data sovereignty. Any of our Canadian clients run in the Canadian Microsoft data centers, US in the US, and then Europe in Western Europe. And you can certainly come to the site here, explore around, understand more about all the different service areas, the organization as a whole, and drill down into all the content that we've got here. And Pat is responsible for content management on the site itself and publishing up the reports and such as part of that. I'm trying to remember, Patty. I mean, when we sort of got the framework of the site together for you, you kind of took it from there to say, okay, now we've got to flesh out the content in the different areas. Now, it wasn't a brand new website. I mean, we were moving it from a existing platform. I'm trying to remember where that was hosted and what was sort of the background of that journey.
So it was actually hosted by the region of Waterloo, and the changes were made using WordPress. Like anything if I had to make changes, I had to go through WordPress. It was bulky and complicated. And so switching to the way that you're doing it now, that we're doing it now with you, is certainly much simpler than what I had to go through before.
I mean, you didn't have direct hands on the website. You had to go through a digital agency to make changes to the site before.
Yeah. Human code. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big deal there. I mean, we ultimately want our clients and the business to be able to manage the content themselves. You really shouldn't have to go to a web administrator to do that. I mean, we're there to help you if you're stuck and say, hey, I just can't figure out how to get this looking exactly the way that I want to, and certainly things like the homepage on any website tends to be a little more complex, and you want to design it well so it works on mobile as well as desktop. So, certainly there to support you from that perspective. So the way that it works for Patty is Patty comes into a separate site. Now, you could hit this URL yourself as well, but you need to log in to come into there. And more importantly, you need to belong to the portal content author group in the underlying system to say, hey, you're allowed to work with the website. So my email address is registered in there. I can hit continue here. And it's single sign-on. So whether I'm going to the secure portal that we're going to see in a minute, or into the content management for the public website, it's the same identity, it's the same user that I'm using for both of those from that perspective. So, I mean, generally you don't touch the homepage too much. We like to make these sort of roll-up pages that build content off of other areas. But if I come down into, we're actually going to be using roads as an example a little later. So let's go into the roads scenario. You know, Patty, you've got the ability to come in here and say, hey, I need to edit this particular page and update the content that's in here, add in some images, some videos, some hyperlinks. You know, is there anything that you're sort of not able to do as a content author through here from a self-service perspective?
No, I don't think so. I haven't made that many changes to these pages. Mainly it's the contact us page where I've made some changes, and that may need to be changed again right now.
All right. Yeah, so the idea is it's pretty easy for you to go in and make those changes. This is literally the live site, so I'm not going to touch anything during the demo here, but you have the ability to edit a page. We can keep a draft version, so you know you can circulate it around to say, hey, is this what we actually want to be saying here? Yes, okay. Then we can pull down the gear menu as a content author, and there would be a publish option that shows up here to say, hey, this is now ready. When you hit this, it then becomes the live page on the live site immediately from there. So that's sort of the first piece. Now, part of the public website is actually the forum site. So we have the ability to come in here. Now, the forum ran November 5th and 6th last fall. But we've got basically event pages lit up through here. So each event that's going on, it started with a culinary school tour, which is really cool. I actually joined the tour with Patty and a bunch of the municipal folks. Niagara College is well known for both its culinary and its wine and beer operations. So we got to sample a little bit of all that, which was great. But I can come down into the particular events, get details around that, understand how it works and what I want to pick out from an agenda point of view. But then ultimately, if I want to register for this, so remember I'm still a public person. I haven't logged into anything at this point just yet. If I come over here for a sec on my other screen, we don't expose this link in the website, so I've just got to copy it across. This brings us into the forum registration page. Or actually, I think I had one already queued up. I do. Yeah, and then you don't have to watch me type all my information in here. So I've already got my name and email, contact stuff in here. So this is what anybody attending the forum would be doing. Now, generally, they're going to be coming from one of the member municipalities, but I'm going to pick other because I'm not actually a member of one of those municipalities. So I'll put my title information in there, and I'll specify Envision IT as my organization, coming from Ontario, and then I can pick out service areas of interest. So this is really important, as organizers to understand, what is the interest of the participants, and can we tailor from a particular area point of view. But I'm just going to go ahead and stick all in there from that perspective. Now, there was both a virtual and an in-person. The in-person one closed a few days before the event, just from a logistics point of view. And we did provide discount codes. There were codes to speakers, so they could register and not pay because they shouldn't be paying as a presenter at the conference. And I think there were some other discount codes that you had there as well, Patty.
Yeah.
And then obviously, if there's any restrictions that we should be aware of, are you joining one of the tours so that Patty can organize appropriately from that point of view, and then go ahead and register. So right now I'm still on the public website, and then I can click the register button, and it's flipped over onto a Stripe.com page. So we've set up Stripe as the payment provider linked in with MBN Canada. So when people pay, you can see I'm actually in the UK right now. So it's suggesting, do you want to use Canadian dollars or UK? It actually does the currency stuff for you automatically as part of that. We also figured out all the tax rules to say what province are you registering from? Do we need to collect GST, HST, depending on whether you're Alberta, Ontario, BC, et cetera, from that point of view, and then provide your card information. Sorry, I'm not going to actually put a real card and register. I just wanted to take it to this point here. So Patty, last year was the first year that we did a sort of a self-registration through the website with the e-commerce integration, maybe compare and contrast that to prior years that you'd managed the registrations.
Sure. Yeah, this was amazing for me from an organizational perspective. In prior years, people would register on one page, and then I would have to send them an invoice, which they could then pay. We tried Eventbrite. We just could not get anything set up the way we needed it with this, where we were able to, like you showed, select if you were going to be attending the cocktail reception, select if you were going to do the culinary tour. And it just gave those options, for different provinces for taxes. So using Stripe and integrating Stripe payment as well as the registration all into one place was just made my life so much easier for organizing the forum.
Yeah, and you had something weird happen the year before with QuickBooks and payments stuff wasn't processing through to your bank. I can't remember the exact details. But
yeah, it wasn't allowing them deposits to go directly into our bank account, and we had to reconcile it every week. It was a mess.
Yeah. Whereas this, as
this
soon
just
as
goes directly into
those
the bank
funds
account.
Just go right in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So much easier to manage from that point of view. Cool. Thank you. Okay, so let's switch gears. We've been very focused sort of on the public website, the event management side of it. Let's bring it around to the actual secure portal. So again, I mean, this is a public link. Anybody can come to it. You'll get to this page here. That's typically as far as you can go from that point of view. Now, some of our sites, like I'll spend a little time later on our M365 Toronto site, which is actually built on the same platform. Anybody can come here and self-register. We're a free, community or organization, association, so we're fine from that point of view. But in the MBN Canada scenario, it is a private invitation-only portal. Each municipality joins, so it's not a user-based membership; it's an organization-based membership, and then that municipality is responsible for sort of laying out who from their organization is going to be participating in the portal. So I'm going to go ahead and log in with my Envision IT address here. And what we've done is we've actually set up some demo areas on the portal. I don't want to take you into the real expert panels and the real municipal areas. Obviously, that's private information. So we've got a demo panel and demo municipality that we're going to work with here. But before I dive in there, let's start with sort of a walkthrough of what this secure portal is. I mean, it serves sort of two main purposes. One, data collection is obviously a big part of what MBN Canada does. They've got the measures across all those service areas that we're talking about and collecting that information. And then providing the results of that through reports back out to the members is sort of the other half of the puzzle from there. So why don't we actually start on the data dictionary side? Since we're going to use roads as an example, we'll stay focused. Oops, I just blew things up here. Okay. We're going to have to leave that for right now. So I don't know, Amanda, if you can grab Arthur or Aaron and get them to chat me a quick link into there. I'm not sure what we've done, but if I can get a direct link down into the data dictionary for roads, that would be awesome. Really, what that does is it explains the details of that particular area and then the measures themselves. So understanding as you're collecting measures, what do they represent and what are we trying to measure is an important part of that. In fact, that's a big part of the intellectual property of MBN Canada is those definitions themselves and the work that's happened over the last 20 years to sort of define those and standardize them across the municipalities. And then the other side of that is the reporting piece to say, hey, let's bring that data back out. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to stop sharing here just for a second because I want to get down into a public area of the report. So I'm not sharing any measures that shouldn't be publicly shared in the recording here. So bear with me one sec. So I'm going to stay on the roads theme. There we go. Okay, so let me share back out again. Okay. So we're actually using Power BI, which is part of the Microsoft 365 stack, to provide the reporting back. So we'll get into the data collection and how that works in a minute. We're kind of going to work backwards and start with the output and then talk about how that comes in. So I can actually put this full screen. So this report here is not a static report. In the past, Patty, you've provided sort of PDF copies of the reports out to the members, and then you had a separate report that was prepared for the board, and yet another one that was provided to the public. Tell us a bit about sort of the preparation process prior to the portal of the building of that report.
Oh, okay. So prior to the portal, we had sort of it was called a data warehouse, and all of our members would enter their data. We would then build reports using Excel and, oh gosh, what's it called? Publisher.
Word?
Publisher.
Publisher?
Yeah,
Okay.
Publisher. And that was very, very time consuming, trying to make sure things lined up properly. It was a nightmare. It took at least a month to get that report ready. So we would essentially be presenting a report in October or November with data from the prior year. So data that was almost a year old.
Right.
So the implementation of using Power BI and the data portal has been huge for us. So this year, with any luck, people have started entering their data right now. They can use it internally up until July 31st, and as of August 1st, they can start using it for public reports.
So much tighter
sooner.
time
And
to...
if you don't work for a municipality, that probably still sounds like it's 6 months old. However, municipalities are required to submit their financial information to the province by the end of May. So typically, we don't have that financial information until June for most of the municipalities.
So you're really only 2 months from a data collection and a report presentation point of view, which is miles ahead. Yeah, I mean, 700 measures, so 700 of these Excel charts sort of tweaked manually, inserted into Publisher. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
No.
Yeah, so we still have a data warehouse. It's still a SQL database. We've moved it up into the cloud in Microsoft Azure, but now we're using Power BI to generate those reports. So literally as the data call is happening. So we opened the data call May 12th, wasn't it? So a couple of weeks ago.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, that data will start to come through from that perspective. I'm looking at prior, we haven't actually lit up the reporting for the 2024. We're pretty early days on that, but we'll be able to do it as the data call is progressing, with the caveat that, hey, maybe some municipalities haven't reported those measures just yet, and such. And I guess the end of July is sort of that, okay, everybody's got their stuff in there. We can start publicly reporting on this now. So if we look at the roads example here, I mean, the first ones are sort of more demographic, population type of information. But if I jump ahead into some of the other measures here, interesting. So basically what we're seeing is different municipalities across the chart here that are reporting in this data, and understanding, in this case, vehicle kilometers traveled per lane kilometer. It sounds pretty convoluted, but it's an interesting metric to say, hey, doesn't matter how wide your roads are. If it's the 401 and it's 24 lanes wide as you go by Toronto, or it's a 2-lane highway, there's still a kilometer of traffic lane, and how much vehicle traffic is crossing across that. I actually live in Halton and Georgetown. We seem to be the worst. Our roads are the most crowded from that point of view. Okay. Calgary's pretty open out west, so them not so much from that perspective. But that's the kind of information that you glean from here, and understand from that point of view. On-road traffic collision rate per million vehicle kilometers. Where is it safer or less safe to drive, and what can municipalities? Oh, that actually seems opposite. That Halton's low on the collisions but high on the density. You'd actually think it would be the opposite way around from that point of view. So you've got data analysts that can use this data in their subject area and really dive deep on that, and work with their colleagues in other municipalities that may not know otherwise, and understand, hey, what are you doing in your region? What are we doing in our region? How does that compare and contrast? How can we learn from each other from that point of view, which is a big part of the program. So, I mean, there's a ton of content, a ton of data in here from that point of view, and trying to get it standardized and understood from that perspective is a big part of the goal of the portal. So let's keep coming back and look at sort of the data collection side of that. So this page here is sort of the main landing page that any member comes to when they come in, and they'll see different groups depending on what they belong to. I've signed in with my Envision IT account, so I don't see a lot of the groups in there. I'm in the admin group, and I happen to be in an expert panel just because I think we were looking at some things there from that perspective. But as I mentioned, we've got the demo panel and the demo municipality. Let's actually start on the municipal side. So basically, each member municipality has their own groups. If I go in and view this group, we've been actually making up some AI-generated dummy people here. We didn't get the images loaded up just in time from that perspective. But again, we didn't want to share real people, so these aren't actually members of municipality. But what we can see here is the Excels that we use for data entry. So think about the 700 measures or even the 250 measures that we're down to now. It's still a lot of data to collect, and there's a lot of different people involved in doing that. So how do we bring that together from that perspective? And basically, if I come down, say, into the roads area, where do we find that? Roads 2024. This is where the beauty of integration into Microsoft 365 really comes out, because you can see on the URL here, I've actually flipped over into mbncanada.sherpa.com. So that's the tenant for MBN Canada. It's not, Envision IT hosting that data. It's in their tenant, managed by Microsoft, but owned by MBN Canada. So that data ownership is very important from that perspective. And these are plain empty templates here right now. They wouldn't normally look like this for a member municipality. They would have previous year data in here to give some context as somebody's entering in. So we're looking at things like operating costs for roads or total costs for roads. They're basically entering those numbers in. And then we've got some calculations that can bring in some demographic information like population and overall population that become denominators for those fields there to build out the results to compare to the previous results and to look at percent changes from that point of view. And they can actually keep some comments around where they're gathering that data from. They have to go to source systems. It could be their ERP like SAP, could be some other system that they're managing that data in, and year over year the people may change. So let's keep track of that and make it easy for whoever's coming in this year to understand where did we get that data from. So Patty, you've just gone through a big exercise kind of getting these Excels ready, because there was obviously a big change in the measures this year. Tell us a bit about that process.
Yeah, so if you look down the side with the rows, you'll notice that there are quite a few that are hidden.
Oh, there's a bunch of hidden ones I didn't notice.
Yeah, so if those were unhidden, you would see like the full measure deck. Our municipal leads, so each municipality has a municipal lead who's responsible for coordinating the data collection in their municipality. And they, along with our board, decided that they wanted to sort of pare down our measure deck this year, kind of go back to basics and look at some more specific metrics. So that's why you'll see the numbers jump a little bit in those rows. There are quite a few, and roads actually is one of the areas that has, let's see, 36, typically has 36 different measures. So I did go through and I hid those. I didn't want to delete them completely, because once they go through the exercise for this year, the service areas will meet and then they will discuss, are there some of those hidden measures that they want to bring back? Are there other changes that they want to make? And one of the things I was going to say, Peter, when you were talking about sort of our, there are two sort of main things that we do at MBN Canada. I would say there are three, and collaboration is the biggest one for our members to be able to network and meet and discuss the results of this, discuss what are causing those changes. So we try to have lots of supporting measures in these metrics, but a lot of times it's the context around what the results are that are very important. And our service areas usually meet once or twice a year, one, to discuss what metrics they think are important to be measured, and then two, to talk about those best practices, as Peter was talking about.
Yeah, and it's not just you updating a whole bunch of Excels to get the right measures in there. There's a whole lot of pre-work that happens, because you've got to shepherd the cats and say, okay, what are the measures going to be?
Yes, yeah, that was a lengthy process. Well, it was lengthy in the program office, and then the municipal leads managed to sort of pull it together within a 1-month period. So,
Right.
we did open the portal a little bit later than this year than we had intended. But, and again, next year, hopefully it'll be open even earlier. So.
Right.
And I also just wanted to point out that if for anyone who's wondering Peter mentioned that this is on SharePoint. So we previously used MS Teams prior to our work with Envision IT. So we would have MS Teams, or sorry, you did set up our MS Teams where we could have our meetings
But just
and we would use
natively out
Zoom.
of the box.
Yeah, but we had a completely separate data warehouse, and then we had Teams for meetings. So the nice thing is that now everything is all in one place. So that's the biggest thing for us is that, and I'm sure Peter's going to show you those pages where we have our meetings. Everything is contained in one place for our members. So made it much easier for them.
And even the choice to use Excel from a data entry point of view, this is actually a copy of the blank template, so it's not locked down. But basically, the way we do it is the white cells are unprotected, everything else is protected. And you can get quite complicated in your formulas that pull data from other spreadsheets, and there's sort of a municipal data Excel that is the master data. Wiring all that together, can sound onerous, but it's actually a lot easier than writing code to do that. It's something that, you as a business user, you can fire up Excel and build those formulas and those connections yourself as part of that.
Yeah, and I think users, everyone is familiar with using Excel. So
yes,
we didn't get any complaints. We actually used to use Excel spreadsheets probably 15 years ago in OMBI. This was how we primarily collected the data. And then it was all entered by the municipal lead. So
I can imagine there was a lot of Excel.
It felt a little bit like a step back at first, but what's that?
A lot of emails going back and forth with attachments. So
Yeah. So it did feel a little bit like a step back at first from what we were using. But again, I think our users were all very familiar with Excel and understood easily how to use it. So we certainly haven't had any complaints.
Yeah, I mean, the key for me is something I say a lot when I'm talking about SharePoint and Teams is single version of the truth. Like there is one Excel for each service area for each municipality. They're not flipping around saying, do you have the current one or is it somebody else? And no, it's here. There's only one of them. There's version history. You can see it all from that point of view. Cool. Now, an important Excel here is the security matrix. So this one is kind of the master Excel that decides who gets to do what in there. Whoops. Here, let me stop sharing for a sec. I had overwritten this with sample data. What did I get here? I'm just going to scroll this over so we only see a portion of it. Bear with me. Apologies on that. We'll do a little cleansing on the recording. So you'd mentioned municipal leads, Patty. I mean, there's a municipal lead at each municipality, and like the name says, they're the lead person on the program. So they are responsible for figuring out who comes in and what they do. And this could look a little overwhelming to people, but I mean, this is the place that they do that. We decided just to put one letter fields in here just to make it a little easier to fit everything in, but we put a permissions key here to say, what does that actually mean? Can somebody just read values? Can they enter them? Do they belong to the expert panel? Or are they the primary person from that point of view? Like, what's their role? And as you notice across the top, we flipped it just to make it a little more compact, but these are all the different service areas. So think of all the people that belong to the municipality, all the service areas that MBN Canada collects data from. This matrix define who does what in each of those intersections. I mean, Patty, how has that worked in that delegation model of saying, okay, you figuring out for every municipality what everybody's role is sounds overwhelming. This idea of letting the municipalities do it themselves. Yeah,
and again, this was a huge time saver for me. So I would get easily, a dozen requests a week. Particularly sort of this time of year where the municipal leads are doing their kickoff meetings and you find out that somebody has left the department or left the municipality and being replaced and they have to be changed. So in the past, they would have to email me and say, delete this person, add this user, these are the service areas, and I would have to go in and do that work. This allows the municipal lead coordinator to do all that work themselves. So again, it's very simple. They just go in, change the coding, delete the row if somebody has left, add somebody new and they're in control. That was one thing that they really wanted, was to be able to be in control. And that way they're not waiting for me, to have the
Right.
time to make those changes as well. They can do them themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
And it
there's a
allows
lag,
them,
but
I
it's
think,
pretty
to,
small. I can't remember how often we process the security matrix, whether it's every
I
hour
think it's twice a
or,
day.
yeah. So it's
It
basically
might be
job
every hour
runs.
right now, but typically it's just twice a day, I think,
Right.
during the most part of the year.
Yeah.
And this
So
was a request that we did have from the
from the
municipal
membership.
leads as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So Patty, you mentioned the panels, the committees. So let's switch over to there, because that's part of the role here. It's not just
Yeah.
the data collection side, but it's the discussions around
Yes.
that. So if we come back to our members' home here, we have a demo panel, which is set up to sort of illustrate what that looks like.
Right.
So again, it's our dummy people in here. We've got a couple of dummy meetings and documents, but it's really the structure that we want to talk about here. So there's a number of things in each expert panel, and each service area has an expert panel associated with it. So there's a roads expert panel from the road service area that we were using as our example previously. And there's documents that may relate to particular measures within that service area. There's documents that relate to the expert panel as a whole. But the biggest thing really is running meetings and sessions around there. So, I mean, what's the frequency historically, and where are you going to from a panel meeting point of view?
So we used to hold sometimes 3 meetings a year for the service areas, but we have reduced that now. It'll be 2 meetings per year.
Okay.
And we've essentially told the panels, if they have a question, because they do have this panel collaboration and knowledge exchange section, they have the ability on the right-hand side of the page to email individual members or email the whole group. If they have an item that they want to discuss, if they feel the need for a meeting, then we can just call an ad hoc meeting as necessary, rather than holding 36 meetings, during the month of February, and another one we used to do February, August, and November. So as you can imagine, that's quite time consuming. So,
yes,
we're sort of getting to where we'll have one official meeting per year. And then if they want other ad hoc meetings, we can do that as required.
And the idea is that whoever's the owner or manager of the panel can do that themselves, or Patty, you can do it on their behalf if you're organizing them. We just come into the plus here to say, hey, I want to add in a new meeting. We're using what we call data rooms in our product to represent the meetings themselves. So if I go into one of the existing ones here, the Peter Test one that I created earlier today, I can click in that, and then I get all the details about that meeting itself. So, when is it? What type of meeting is it? It's hybrid. Is there a physical location? That's actually our post office box location for Envision IT. Is there a link to join the Teams meeting? Is this a past or an upcoming? And then what's the meeting package? Was there a briefing package prior to the meeting? Was there minutes and recordings from the meeting? It's very easy to just upload content in there as an owner of the meeting and work with it from that point of view. I'm actually going to flip over to a different browser here for a second, because I'm signing in as a different user. Let's see if I can just bring that up. We've kind of continued the theme of using Excel as part of this as well. So I'm here in that same demo panel. I've signed in as an elevated user, as an owner. So I see some additional links here. And one of them is this configuration Excel, which is where I can define all those details around the meeting. So when is it? What type of meeting is it? What's the physical location? Is there a Google Maps link or a Teams join link that I want to put in as part of that? I just toss all that information in. I can add as many rows as I want through here. And basically that content becomes the meeting details up the top here. So to the attendees who are joining, I mean, they're going to get a calendar invite. They can just click that to join, but it's handy to be able to come to the portal here, before, during, or after, and basically have a one-stop shop with all the information around it, whether it's how do I get into the meeting, how do I get there physically, what's the package prior, where's the recording afterward, all those sorts of things. They can see it through here. And as you mentioned, they can reach out to each other directly through the member interface here. Yeah, we'd actually talked about it at the forum in the fall, maybe lighting up Viva Engage or some sort of discussion forum concept as part of the panels here, so they can have those ad hoc conversations without flipping over to email and having it sort of private between two people would be more visible to the panel as a whole. We haven't gone down that path fully yet, but it's an interesting concept that I'd still like to look at. So let's talk more about the directory itself. So since we're not fully populated on this side here, I'm actually going to use our EOM demo portal, which again anybody can come into and have a look at. If you land on the homepage of our demo portal and you're curious about the member directory stuff, just come into directory off of test ride here. And TOSA is the made-up company that Microsoft always uses, so we decided to use the same company name as part of what we're doing here. So you can come in, you can filter by job title, by department, drill into people. So I can drill into Abigail. Again, the faces are all AI generated, the bios are all AI, so they're not real people that we're sharing across as part of that. I can bring up additional details on them. I can go to their profile page and see all their details from that perspective. And if I'm back on the live site itself, and let's just go over the directory here. I'm going to use myself as an example. So if I search for Peter, bring up my profile, mine's a real one. That LinkedIn link is my real link from that perspective, and you can bring up my profile. What we would like to do is expose what committees each person belongs to and get a sense of what their relationship within the association is as part of that as well, which is something we're going to be adding in there too. But the folks can basically provide this information themselves. They can come up here as a signed-in user and say, hey, I want to go to my profile page, and decide, by default, we actually put it out to the membership and said, is everybody okay if we default in and you opt out? And because it's a private group, like you have to be signed in to see it and part of the association, everybody said, yeah, that's reasonable. If I really don't want to be in there, I can turn that off and then I'm gone from the directory. They may not want to share their email address to people that aren't on the same panels as them, or they may choose to share it. It's up to them, and they can opt into a newsletter, and then they can self-provide things like their LinkedIn profile if they want to, that it will light up that LinkedIn link. And they can say a little bit about themselves to say, hey, here's my background, role, information about me, and it becomes available for all the other members to discover through the portal. Because remember, these are folks from many different municipalities. They don't necessarily know each other. It's a great way to connect them and provide that ability to cross-pollinate across the different municipalities. So I think I'm pretty much hitting time here, but I think I actually touched on most of what we wanted to go through here from that perspective. So let me flip back to the PowerPoint here. I think we just had a couple of closing slides. So from a key takeaway point of view, this idea of managing external communities, it may be a little tougher out of the box with Microsoft 365, but with our external user manager platform on top of that, it is actually a great platform from that point of view. It can address all the community management needs, and as you heard from Patty, there's a number of ways that we've helped, from prior incarnations of the website, of the portal, of the data collection, of the data warehouse, the reporting, that's had significant measurable improvements from an administrative time and from a member satisfaction point of view. So Patty, any sort of closing thoughts you want to share with the group on your side?
Just that, as you have in number 3 there, definitely has saved a lot of time for me and made our members much happier. It's given them a little bit more autonomy in being able to control their users. And yeah, overall, we've been thrilled with the changes. We look forward to upcoming changes.
Very good. Thanks, Patty. So, at the end of the day, we like to say we make Microsoft simple, so let's make member management simple together. By all means, reach out if you're interested in learning more. And Patty, a huge thank you for joining us here. It's been great to have this conversation together.
You're happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll chat later.